Hello, Bethany. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to be talking to you.
Bethany, this is going to be sensational for a myriad of reasons, but one of which is we are not just moms.
Nope.
We are pure New York city bred and born mothers.
Yes, and you sound more so than I do, but because I just adore you. I love everything. I love how you talk, how you carry yourself, and like people sometimes look at me and they're like, "You're not from here." I'm like, "No, I'm from here."
Yeah, like it's legit. It's in the water, right? And
Yeah,
just like a New York bagel, right? Why are they so delicious? It's in the water.
the water.
It's in the water. Bethany, I am thrilled to have you on this live conversation. This is going to appear on Unimaginable Wellness, the podcast for moms who must bubble wrap our sanity. Oh my God. Halloween is coming up, Bethany.
Can you believe that?
We spoke in July. We were going through like the summer fiasco of, childcare solutions gone wrong. And now costumes.
I know it's wild. Actually, like I can't. This is the first time. This is the first time I'm talking about Halloween. Like right now, like I'm so still like catching up from that crazy summer of not being able to do anything because my kids are home with me.
I know, I know. So it's nonstop action for moms. So I thought we would really dive into your book. I
Okay.
mean, it is so real talk. I can't
Oh
even.
my
So
gosh, it
like a mother,
is.
banish guilt, blaze your trail and break the rules to create a life you love. Oh my gosh, Bethany. So here's where I'm going with this. I believe that any primary caregiver to a child, if they decide to write a book, there's always like a book behind the book, like a backstory. Like there's
Absolutely.
no way we do this unscathed. Not at all. So why don't you share kind of like, okay, why the book and tell us like a story or two of like the theatrics behind putting this book together with kids and working and all of that.
Absolutely. This is actually a book I wanted to write in 2018. And I'm glad I didn't actually, because I wasn't like fully in the right mindset, even though the inception for it was there. So cut to like nearly like 4 years later when I actually got into the nitty gritty of writing it, like the idea had evolved a little bit. I was also like more into like the motherhood and career journey. But essentially the idea for the book was like, I came into motherhood and into my career and into my relationships in sort of like a way that it's not, the standard or traditional, right? Like I know it's not, I'm not breaking the wheel by saying I was a mom before I got married, but there was other things like that. Like I decided to pursue a career in journalism without having sort of any traditional education or knowing any contacts. I just said, "Oh, I want to do this," and I jumped in. And the same thing, like in my relationships and things like that. And I was finding success, and so I thought, okay, well, if I can do it with like these like new rules, this new way of thinking, this kind of like audacity to believe in myself, even though I have really like nothing to like actually like back that up. I was like, well, other women can too. And I was, coming out of the isolation and like loneliness of new motherhood. I mean, it's something that's always there, but I think those beginning stages of like, like the newborn baby. I was had a newborn baby and like a toddler, so kind of like coming out of the haze of that, realizing like I can help people, I can help women, pursue their passions. I think we feel held back so much, and I think that's bullshit. And so I want to empower women to go after everything they want. But to answer your other question about like the nitty gritty of the book, yes, it took me so many years. And even though I'm a writer and I'm an editor and I've helmed some incredible, amazing like digital media brands, I could not freaking write this book. I needed help. And I don't know if it was because I was doing a million things, like I got, like we all are, but I
Yeah.
could not get myself to a point where I could actually like put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. So fully transparent, I hired a book coach. Every single word in this book is mine, but I needed somebody to keep me accountable with weekly meetings and help get like the ideas out and how to format and how to outline. So I did. I actually hired someone to help me write this book. Her name is Chelly Grace. She's this amazing woman based out of Miami. Obviously, I have a thing for Latinos. My husband, she's Cuban. My husband's Puerto Rican and Cuban. I adore you. Like clearly, like I have like a type. Anyway, so I connected with her and like we hit it off, and she helped me put this book together. And so that is the reality of it. I know a lot of people do it and they do it on their own. I just felt like I needed a bit of hand holding through this process.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about like this village that we need to raise our kids. And in my book that I'm actually releasing October 31, Fertile Imagination, like that's like a critical piece of the puzzle. Like, how oftentimes we're like, I wish I could just like duplicate myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. You ask for help, and that is a way to duplicate ourselves as moms. And something that really resonated with me, because there are moments that maybe we don't want to duplicate ourselves. We want to be present, but to your book and the insights that you share with moms, Halloween is coming up. I don't know about you, but for me, my mom was a single mom and she never took me trick or treating. She had to work. So I had this like angel of a babysitter who had like 12 other kids she cared for, and she would walk us down Steinway Street. I guess it could be like Sesame Street, but not really.
I
In
would
Queens.
not equate Steinway Street to Sesame Street, but
We use our imagination here. We pretend. But okay, sorry. You got to get New York, right? Like why not?
right.
So anywho, so my mom never took me trick or treating. You speak in your book about, doing away with mom guilt, right? And right now there's a mom, especially on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of moms there, who feels that and holds that guilt. So I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts? It's a big piece of your book.
Yeah. I think, it is such a universal topic when we talk about motherhood and things like that. And then I really try to be as kind of like introspective and really think about guilt and like where it comes from and why we have it. And what I've really come to think of guilt as is just doesn't serve me, right? And because we can really get like really spiral into it, and then it's almost like we're like adding insult to injury, right? Because we already feel
Mm,
guilty, now we're going to let that guilt sort of overtake us. I think that what your mother did in enlisting a babysitter can kind of be equated to like how I got someone to help me write this book. She needed help, the village
mhm.
wasn't there, so she got her village, she like got it right, like. And so I think that's really what I like to speak about. That's sort of like the platform I like to stand on, is that okay, if it's not there, how can we make it work for us? um and I don't really, it's hard to say like I don't want women to feel guilty for that. Of course we all struggle with our own thing, but just remember it's not serving you, right? I think it's important to reflect and take those moments and like be introspective, but in those moments it's like we have to keep moving. Like we don't have time for guilt. We're too busy raising our beautiful kids, trying to make a buck. Like if, as a single mom, put food on the table. We are clearly all trying to do our best. And I know that when it comes to Halloween, some mothers, I'm not the kind of mom that's going to put the inflatables on the front porch and like sew my kids costumes by hand. Like, so we all are like doing the best, like fitting in, like making our own rules as we go to, really create a life for ourselves and for our children that is like manageable. Because in this day and age, it's like it can get really out of control. I hope that answers your question.
It does, because I think right now, I mean, this is just, a very seasonal topic in terms of just timeliness. And I don't think I have ever heard it addressed, to be honest. And I think it's something that's important because there's some moments, whether it's a media sort of thing or what, there's some moments that you just associate like motherhood with, right? So,
Yeah.
like motherhood with back to school, motherhood with Halloween, motherhood with you are Santa Claus, right? And it's like, well, these are important moments. These are not necessarily moments you would want to not be part of. But at the same time, as you write in the book, it's about, writing your own rules, like making it special for you and your family, and being honest about what you need for that to look like.
Yeah, and actually what you just said really kind of like sort of like was a light bulb moment for me too, like in real time, because I read this like meme. I think it's meant to like really tap into your heartstrings. Like all
Mm.
that Christmas magic I felt growing up was just my mother showing how much she loved me. But like, whoa, that's a lot of freaking pressure. Right? Like I have to create Christmas magic every year and make sure your back to school is like beautiful and you have that chalk sign and make sure you have the coolest costume and you're trick-or-treating with all the right people. This is like that mental load of motherhood that like we are starting to like talk about more and more. Like, yes, we want to make our children's lives magical, but like, what's the freaking cost here? Like, when did it become such a mental burden? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like we actually have so many resources today. And I would say that just because we have all these resources and abilities, we don't necessarily need to use them all in the particular way of them draining us, Like the idea that you just shared, sewing a costume. Wow. Talk
Wait,
about
my mom did that, and to this day, she's like, "I sewed all your costumes by hand." It's like I'm about to be 39 years old, and she cannot. Every time I see her.
wow. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, I can definitely say that my personal mom handbook excludes sewing anything. It includes embarrassing my kids though. That's like
Okay,
written in.
that's
Cannot be
right.
edited. And that brings me joy, to be honest.
Whatever, you got to lean into that joy, right?
Lean
However,
yeah, lean into the joy. So Bethany, in terms of the conversations that you decided to include in your book, I'm wondering like how did you reach those conclusions? Cuz it's hard. I mean, you have an on-air show. There's so many celebrities that you've spoken to. There's so many conversations you've been a part of and you've learned from. How did you pick the right ones for your book and what's your intention behind having chosen them?
yeah, I think, well, the book is laid out into 3 parts, and, like, that was the, one of the great things about working with a book coach. I was able to get, like, really organized, and that doesn't come natural to me. I was just kind of, like, writing. She's like, "Well, let's break this into 3 parts," and so the first part's all about self-love. Second part is about relationships, and the third is work and ambition. So, as I was doing these podcasts, I mean, people come on, I always say we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. This really is my podcast, but it's really a platform for you to talk about what's important to you. Maybe it's something you're promoting. So I found that because I've done so many episodes, I was really able to find the right conversations to just naturally weave in. The topics aren't so granular and niche like self-love, relationships, work, and ambition, that I was able to get really great excerpts from the podcast that I've already done. Some of the women include Rajma Sojani, who's like this amazing, amazing advocate for working mothers and really is fighting for change at the federal and government level. So that was really phenomenal. And I'll tell you, she was like this woman that I was like, oh, I can't even approach her. And then I
Ah,
did, then I did, and she gave me not only the interview, but she gave me a testimonial, a blurb on the back of the book. And now we were featured in Forbes recently together. So these are like the things that like just happen. I think like to just kind of like circle back, like if you are kind of like in alignment with like your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing, things are like happening. But the podcast was really like a great resource for me to pull from when I was creating this book, because I certainly wanted it to be my own experience and like grounded in my own words, my own experience of going through and like raising my kids, pursuing my career in the way that I have. But I was like, it's such a bigger thing, and I wanted to include like words and wisdom from other women. And I'm actually working on a second book, and it'll be the same way. I don't know if I'll pull from the podcast, but I can't imagine creating a book that doesn't include like the voices of other women. So maybe I'll only ever write like anthologies and things like that, but
mm,
that's okay by me, because I think like that's what really is like my mission. That's like what I was put here to do, is like amplify women and like help us like own our lives and our choices, and just like to keep on living like an inspiration.
I love that. You know, it's what I find fascinating. So, and I've been asked this, and I'd love your opinion because I think anyone that's watching or listening can really just like sit with the thoughts that come up. So, you are around these really, really fancy schmancy, intimidating human beings all the time, and you're on TV. So this is like super public, right?
Mhm.
Like how do you have you ever felt imposter syndrome in your life?
Are you joking? I'm like feeling it all the time, but like guilt. Who is that? What is that? How is that serving me? And I think it takes like some kind of like, when we talk about like the work, right? Like we do on ourselves, like you have to sit in it. Like you have to sit in that imposter syndrome. My gosh, like for like the first 7 years of my career, I was an imposter. I didn't go to school for English. I had no experience with like grammar and syntax. I was making like really, really like big mistakes, like, and getting called out and feeling, having to sit in that embarrassment. So it wasn't just also like me thinking like I don't belong here. It was like, wow, I really don't know this stuff, and I got to get to know it quickly if I want to have any kind of respect in this industry. Because like when you're talking about writers and editors, it's like talk about fancy schmancy, right? Like these people know their stuff, they take it seriously. So that was one part of it. But to answer your question about like being in the public and like talking to famous people, I really do believe like once you do it enough, like Rajma intimidated me. I'll tell you, I've talked to like A-list celebrities. They don't intimidate me so much, and
Wow.
I don't want to be like a jerk about it, but like people who are really like smart and making changes and like really have like a mission and are fighting for like fighting for change and like are just, you know, those are the people that intimidate me. And I think that does stem from that like feeling of like, oh, I didn't get the right degree. I don't know like this. I don't
Mm.
I'm from Hell's Kitchen. Like I don't know. Like I don't, sometimes like I don't talk so good. Like things like that. But like you know, it's the celebrities for the most part. And like I've had a lot of experiences with celebrities, and some are so gracious and kind and some are not. So I'm like, you know what? I just come into it as myself, and if they respond, they respond. But I was really, just to go back, like I was really nervous to talk to Rajma, and I was nervous to talk to oh, actually my friend Stephanie Carton, who created the Entrepreneurial League. She's just so smart and such a connector. And even though we're friends and I was on her podcast, I was nervous to talk to her.
Wow. So you would never know, right? Except when you say it. Except when you say it. I think you actually were fessing up when you were interviewing, was it Bethany Frankel?
Oh, I was, yes. You know what? I was nervous to talk to her because she's just an intimidating personality. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she doesn't mince words.
Mm-mm.
She's super like direct,
Right.
which is very intimidating. But it's so interesting. So okay, so you have this media career and you have this book and you have two kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do they think you do all day? Out of curiosity.
They know about the writing and they know about the book because I have like a million copies of the book in my house, and they think that's really cool that they could go and like that the book's on Amazon and stuff like that. And actually they've been on TV with me. So they started a new school this year. We moved to Long Island. Eesh. I mean, no, I love it out here, but like as a native New Yorker, you know, it's like how could you leave? But you know, you
It's
left.
different. It's
It's
different.
crazy. But anyway, so they started a new school, and they go, and my older son, my 11-year-old Elias, he's like, I googled you in front of my classmates today. I was like, oh really? He's like, yeah. They're like, whoa, you were on TV. So I don't know, like I don't even remember the question you asked me, but like
What do they think you do?
what
They
did
think
they
you're on
do?
Google and you do business with
Yeah,
Amazon.
no, they think I go on TV a lot. They know like Pix 11. I'm on Pix 11 a lot, and then I have a book, and that's really it. But they don't have any idea how I like make income, and sometimes I don't even know either. To be
It's a mystery. It's
honest,
just a
a
big mystery. But no, I mean, Bethany, this has been so amazing. So just to kind of, bring forth like our best, most imaginative thinking around bubble wrapping your sanity my sanity and anyone who's watching's sanity. What sort of hot tips would you give a mom who right now is looking at a busy weekend? Because I don't really think we have weekends. Let me just be
No,
fair. Like they're nice theoretical concepts, but I can't say I like chillax on weekends.
never.
So they're looking at a busy weekend and they need to stay sane because they have a book in, inside of them that they want to
Yeah.
put forth. How might they bubble wrap their sanity very practically?
Very practically, I think I'll kind of reiterate what I said before. Look, I'm not a psychologist, but the things that help me is when I'm feeling guilty or overwhelmed, I push through until I can take a proper like minute to reflect. So if I'm with my kids and I'm feeling overwhelmed and like, oh, not guilty for not doing something, getting to, the weekend, like, what are we doing? Like, is there a fair? I got to drag them here, drag them there. There's a practice or something. I do generally try to push through in a way that's not like repressing anything, but like keeping it moving. And then generally the feelings will shift and evolve. So I would recommend that. Again, I'm not like I don't want to tell anybody like repress it and keep moving. No, but like you have to take the time to reflect. But I think in those moments with your kid, you can push through and watch the feelings shift. And then the other thing that I talk about a lot, and it might be hard to do on a weekend when your kids are home and they require
Mm.
so much of you, but I do talk about setting boundaries with your own children. And that's increasingly difficult. I mean, we can talk about setting boundaries with your spouse or your boss or your mother, and that's can tend to be a little bit easier. But I would suggest setting gentle boundaries with your children, and maybe that's it through a conversation or through you putting yourself in timeout or something like that, so that because they'll drain you, they'll drain the crap out of you. So, and the weekends are especially hard. So I would figure out how you could probably do that in a gentle way if it's something that just kind of viscerally doesn't feel right to you, because it didn't for me for a long time. Like, what do you mean I'm not setting boundaries with my kids? My kids crawl all over me every day and night. We eat from each other's plate. Like, there's no such thing as boundaries with my children. But I think it's important, and it's actually helped me a lot with
I
that. Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard that said before as far as with our children. I think for me it's something that I just feel it. Like, if my 3 children are just all talking simultaneously, and I'm just there and I feel like a helpless bird. It's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm like melting here." Then there have been those moments when I'm just like, "You know what? Like I need to go." And I call those moments my mission impossible moments. It's like you jump out of the plane. So I legitimately will leave at that moment as long as, my husband's home or
Yeah.
someone is taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
And I will hop into the car and maybe or maybe not I'll be matching. Maybe not I would have bathed, but I just have to head out somewhere that is like zen, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like I've done it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's a real
So
thing, getting touched out, like sensory overload. Like, it's not just for kids. Like, we get it a lot too. So,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
yeah.
anyone that's in this like audiobook phase, I'm listening to audiobooks all day long with my
Me
kids.
too. Yeah.
They stack them. They'll have 5
Yeah.
audiobooks up one on top of the other and play them all in order to irritate me. So that's in their handbook, right? I have embarrassing my kids in my handbook. They have bugging out mom in their handbook. But Bethany, this has been amazing. Where can moms purchase your book, learn more about you, and listen to your podcast?
You can purchase my book, Like a Mother, on Amazon. That's the easiest and quickest place to purchase it. I'm also on Instagram at Bethany Braun-Silva. I love to connect with people there. You can also check out, my book and like what I'm up to on television over at my website, BethanyBraunSilva.com. And just a quick little shameless plug. I just launched merch, which I can't believe it. So you can get like a tote bag or a mug. So anyways, check me out over there at BethanyBraunSilva.com.
That is so amazing. Merch. Off the record, but on the record, I'm going to ask you about that because merch is like where it's at, right? Who
Yeah.
doesn't need a mug? Who doesn't need a notebook? Whatever it might be. But
Yeah, just throw that book cover on a mug and you're good. I'll buy it.
awesome. Thank you so much, Bethany.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.